Today's video will be on sketching quadratic relations, so we're learning all about the parabola. Okay, so by the end of the lesson you'll be able to identify the features of a parabola, or parabola as some people call them. So plot a parabola from a given quadratic rule. So the graph of a quadratic relation is called a parabola. So you can see that here, this is what it will look like. So the basic quadratic rule is y equals x squared, and the general equation of a quadratic is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so some key ideas. So the parabola is a symmetrical about a line called the axis of symmetry. So if you can see on these here, they've got a line that divides them perfectly in half, so they're symmetrical on either side, and that's called the axis of symmetry. So it has one turning point, so that's the point right in the middle there, and we call that a vertex, and it can be a maximum or a minimum. So if it's going like the one on the left here, if it's got this kind of shape here, that was what we called a minimum turning point, and if it's got one like the one on the right here, we call this a maximum turning point. Okay. So if you look at our parabola here, we've got a few things that we're going to point out. So you can see right down the middle, we've got the axis of symmetry, and we say our axis of symmetry for this example would be x equals 2, because that line of x equals 2 is right down the middle of our parabola. So we can also say the turning point, so right in the middle there, what's the actual coordinates of that? So the coordinates would be 2, -1, because that's the exact point that it sits on. You can also calculate the y and x intercepts. So the y-intercept, where does it cut the y-axis? So it cuts the y-axis at 3. And where does it cut the x-axis? Well, it does that in 2 places. It does that at 1 and 3. So that would be the points there. Okay, so for the graph on the right here, we've got a few things we have to do. So we have to, the first thing is state the equation of the axis of symmetry. So what that just means is, what is the x value that the axis of symmetry sits on? So x equals, we're going to find the axis of symmetry, which is here, and it sits on 1. So x equals 1. So the type of turning point, is it a minimum or is it a maximum? So you can see the shape of it there, it's showing us that it is a minimum. Okay, the coordinates of the turning point. So our turning point is here, it's the bottom of our axis of symmetry. So what are the coordinates there? So the x coordinate we know is 1, and the y coordinate, if we go across, it's -4. So our x-intercepts, where does it cut the x-axis? It cuts at -1 and 3. Okay, so our next is our y-intercept. Where does it cut the y-axis? Well, if we look here, it cuts the y-axis at -3. And from there, yeah, we've just identified all those features. You can get them just by looking at the graph. Okay, so for the next task, it's a bit involved. We've got quite a few steps. So we're given a quadratic rule. So use the quadratic rule, y equals x squared, take 4 to complete the following tasks. So the first is to complete the following table of values. So all we're going to do is sub our numbers into the formula. So our formula is x squared, take 4. So our first x value is -3 squared, take 4. So -3 squared is -3 times -3. So a negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 3 is 9. So 9 take 4. So leave us with 5. For our second one, y equals x squared, take 4. So we've got -2 squared, take 4. So 4 take 4, 0. For our next one, we've got y equals -1 squared, take 4 it should be. So 1 times 1 is 1, take 4, equals -3. I've run out of space. So 5, 0, -3, I'll just clear this. What do we have? 5, 0, -3. So we can continue on. Y equals x squared take 4. So 0 take 4, 4. So y equals x squared take 4. 1 squared take 4. 1 times 1 is 1 take 4 equals -3. Now you can probably start to see a pattern emerging. Once we've hit our turning point, our answers are going to be the same. So just with any of these kind of quadratic rules, don't just do the first 3 and continue that pattern like you can with linear relations, because it's not going to be a linear relation. Once you get to the 0 and you start going up through the positive numbers, that's when you could start to carry on the pattern, because that's when there will start to be a bit more of a pattern there, because you've reached that turning point on your parabola, so you can actually continue the pattern. Okay, so now that we've used the table of values, we've filled it out, so we've got all our coordinates, we've got our x and our y coordinates, and we can plot those on a graph. So our second thing it's asking us to do is draw a set of axes using a scale that suits the numbers above and plot the points to form a parabola. Okay, so we're going to have to draw up an axis, a Cartesian plane. Now in your books you will obviously be using a ruler, you may even have graph paper, so it'll be really nice and neat and clear. I don't have any of that, so forgive me, yours should be a million times neater than what mine will be. So our horizontal axis is our x-axis. We look at our values. So we're going from -3 to 3. So our x-axis has to at least cater for those values. I think that's going to be probably a little bit short. So we'll go from -4, just so we've got some space. -4, -3. Obviously in your books, as I said, these will be used with a ruler, so they'll be evenly spaced and will look a lot nicer than what mine is going to look. So our y-axis, 5 is the minimum, so let's go 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, -1, let's get rid of this 0, because that should not be 0, the origin is going to be in the middle here, it's going to be 0 here, 1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. Okay, so yeah, let's just work with what I've done. So now that we've done our Cartesian plane, we're going to plot those points. So the first one, x is -3, y is 5. So that will be a point, go to -3, move up 5, there. X is -2, y is 0. So that will be here. Our next point, x is -1, y is -3. And next point, x is 0, y is -4. The point after that, x is 1, y is -3. Next one, x is 2, y is 0. And our next one, x is 3, and y is 5. So we've drawn all our points. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect them together. Now, parabolas should be rounded on the end, so I don't want to see pointed little parabolas there. Make sure they're quite rounded. And of course, we have to label it, so y equals x squared take 4. And now we're going to state the following features according to C. So the type of turning point. Well, we know because of the shape that is a minimum. The axis of symmetry. So where does it cut? Like what's right in the middle there? So that's where x is 0. The coordinates of the turning point, so x is 0, y is -4. The y-intercept, where does it cut the y-axis? So it cuts the y-axis at -4. And the x-intercepts, where does it cut the x-axis? At -2 and 2. So that would be the end of that question there. And that's the end of this video. So any questions at all, please come and see me in class.